I've had times where I don't start recording right away when I log on because I'm fiddling around with my camera and trying to get everything set up. Sometimes I forget to press record. And then after class, I realize, oh my gosh, I don't have a recording to send out.
I'm sure you're not the only one that does that.
Yeah, I learned. I think it happened like 2, maybe 3 times last year during the whole course of my classes. And I just redid it quickly later in the day so there'd be a recording.
That was nice of you to do.
Hi, Patty.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. My supplies came in finally yesterday,
Great.
the 11th hour. So I'm here.
I had you on my mind because I wanted to check in. I didn't go over the setup of our palettes because most of you have already done that. Do you need any help filling your palette with paint?
I think I understand what I need to do.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Don't squeeze out the whole tube. I mean, you could, but just fill them maybe halfway. And I arrange them, like the color wheel. I put the yellows together and the reds together and the blues together, and then there's spaces to fill in.
Right. Nice palettes. I ordered 3 and I received 3, so I've got plenty of room to grow.
Did you mean to order 3?
No, but I thought with my penchant of losing things or misplacing things, it's my character. And then I have artist friends that I'm always looking for something to give them that's meaningful to them, so that it would be a meaningful gift.
They're great palettes for the price. They're just so versatile.
Yeah, I really like
Heather.
Good morning.
I love the look of your solstice flower meditation.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so I'm excited for that. I feel like with the weather change here, like it can be kind of hard on me because I love summer. And so I'm just trying to be really intentional about it and give space to other people to be intentional about it too and set goals so that it can go well.
Yeah, I was tempted to do it. In fact, I really thought about doing it, but I'm thinking my schedule's pretty crazy and I don't know if I can get the flowers. Isn't that sad?
That's a barrier.
I'm really trying to not add anything extra, even the littlest thing.
I know. Yeah, you got to pay
the rest of the month.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll be with you in spirit, and I'm definitely interested in doing something like that again. So
okay, cool. I'll offer it again.
Good morning, Sally.
Yep, you got it. Thank you. Hi.
Good morning. Here
Hi.
Anna, and we have Sandy. So is everyone comfortable? I think everyone else arriving is comfortable with their paints and their palette, right? Yes. Everybody's got a good. Patty was the only one, I think, who was getting new supplies. So I was able to touch base with her. And then, so who else are we waiting with? Sally. Michelle's not feeling well today. Michelle, hope you watch the recording. I'll see you next week. Where's Frances? Frances isn't here. Fran isn't here yet. Sandy's here.
I got a note from her this morning that said she might not make it. So
okay.
Well,
hello, Fran. If you're watching later, we miss you. You can get in touch with me or get in touch with Sally if you have questions. Sally, you and Fran are
Sandy.
Sandy, you are the one who's friends with Fran.
Yes.
Sally, you're in Virginia, and you learned this through Liz Etter.
Yeah, right. Yes.
Now I'm connected. I have a lot of students, lovely students. I love them all, but sometimes it takes me a few times to get everyone straight. Okay, Patty, you're good. Julie, you're good. Yeah, so Michelle, so let's just start. Everyone who's going to make it is here, I think. Set my roll call aside. So before I jump onto my desktop and my lesson, does anyone have questions about last week's lesson? And does anyone feel like sharing anything, holding up anything they did? Just hold it in front of your face if you wish. Oh, Heather, that looks like is that a drawing or just a few leaves?
It's my leaf, so it's a rose.
Oh,
That
nice.
top one is lovely. You've got the different
I like
colors going
those.
through, right?
Well, the veining was kind of difficult. I found that I did it at the end, and then I was like, I don't know if that looks quite right.
I really like that.
It looks good to me. And if you had done it first with paint, it would have blurred and smeared
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
with more application of paint, because watercolor will always come back to life and run. And
That's what I've done. Nude.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
so I think adding the lines afterwards, if you're going to do it with paint, is a good idea. Do it at the end, or
I don't know.
use pen, permanent pen, like a very fine tip pen if you like that look. Sally, you have something to share?
I just showed these.
Oh,
Oh, gorgeous.
like those.
Oh, thank you. I have a hard time kind of doing the different colors. I just don't, you know how you said do every inch and kind of, you know, do like different, you know, make it be different colors of green. I kind of have a hard time with that, but I guess you know, you need practice.
Well, what do you have a hard time actually doing it or feeling like it looks okay?
Well, feeling like it looks okay. When I do it, I go, well, I don't know, maybe it's too this or that. And then when it dries, sometimes I go, oh, how'd that happen?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think it looks beautiful. I love
Oh,
it. I
thank you.
love the way it looks.
Yeah.
That's how I like to paint. I like
Oh,
the
well.
surprises. If you don't, you know, if you want it to be more uniform, you don't have to change color as often.
Yeah. Well,
but you
I like-
mastered the
I
technique.
like that.
Oh, thanks. I thought it was fun looking for the leaves because I go for a walk every day, not looking, I see leaves every day. And
Mhm.
day when I picked a whole bunch of them up and I went, oh, wow, this is neat. This is neat. Oh, that's a great leaf, you know?
So fresh eyes.
Yeah, right. That was fun. I enjoyed it. Look for some more.
And then wait till they turn color. I'm trying to
Yes.
tell the class, so our fourth week will be oranges and reds, so we can do fall foliage.
Yes.
It may not be turning yet, but we can still practice our fall colors. Sally, did you put the veins in at the end with a real fine tip brush?
Well, I did some with the veins with a brush, but some I just did with the pen. With
Okay,
one of those ink pens. I thought that was kind of fun. It makes it look good.
yeah,
But I had done them with pencil maybe before, but that didn't, you know, show through. So
right.
I erased the pencil and I thought it looked better after I got those lines off, but
Very,
I don't,
very
just did
nice.
it with the, what are these kinds of pens you said to get?
The microns.
Yeah, those are fun.
Awesome. I love it. That looks like a nature journaling page. I think from one of my nature journaling classes, we do a lot of drawing of different
Yeah.
plants and flowers and color them.
Yeah, I thought, I think that looks really neat, but
It does. It's very beautiful and you enjoyed it. So
great.
anybody else want to share? Donna, you sent me a photo. Your watercoloring is great. You are making
Yes.
huge strides. Yes. Put it a little bit closer to the camera. Yeah, move it over. Yeah.
That's
So
pretty.
I like how you left. So the Oregon grape, that's the Oregon grape there. And it's like a holly leaf. And I love how you left some white. You don't have to leave white of the paper, but when you do, notice it gives kind of a sparkliness. It looks like light is playing off of the leaf. And then you were very careful and conscientious about changing your color around. And you nailed the blue-green evergreen color of the Oregon grape.
Mhm.
And you got the berries in there. Very nice.
Pretty. That's
Pretty.
really pretty.
Anybody else have anything to share?
I didn't do all of my homework like I thought I would.
Okay,
But
we're
I
not
did,
in school. It's totally
I-
optional.
but what I did do, because I'm proud of that, is I got Fran set up with a full oil palette of tube colors. So she
Oh,
can practice blending better at the beach, yeah. So that was kind of fun too, just to, so she's, she had just a compact and it really doesn't offer the color. So I
it
got her,
doesn't.
yeah.
There we go.
I mean, it's okay. I use it all the time in my classes with my nature
Oh, sure.
classes, but there's the tube paints, the top quality artist professional
Yeah.
grade tube paints are amazing. They
Right.
can't be, yeah, they're really wonderful.
Right. So anyway, that
And
was my
then,
work.
so I hate promoting myself, but if you want to do watercoloring, you all have the supplies now for any of my forward classes in watercoloring. I do watercolor for the very beginner, which is very basic and a lot of this stuff again. And then I do a couple of more advanced watercolor classes and then nature journaling every Tuesday morning online. So all those are on my website, and I'm also going to email everyone in a week or so with
Please
my
do.
updated schedule.
That'd be
Keep on the
nice.
loop.
Mhm.
I love my students and I love doing this. So I do it just for the joy. So, okay, let me transition into our topic today, which will be blues. And also I'm going to try to remind you all next week when I send the Zoom link to bring some things to class next week for our texture lesson. And they're just simple household things like salt, just a little bit of coarse salt is best, kosher salt or coarse salt, pickling salt, whatever. If you just have regular table salt, that'll work too, but a little bit of salt and some plastic wrap, saran wrap, cling wrap, whatever you have, and also wax paper. We don't need a lot. We're just gonna crumple up little bits of it and press it into wet paint to make textures. So salt, plastic wrap. Sarah is in the UK. No, right? Yeah, Sarah, they call it cling film, I think. Yeah, I have one student, Sarah, who's watching these recordings, and it's cling film in Britain, I think. Wax paper. Okay, salt, plastic wrap or saran wrap, and then rubbing alcohol.
Okay.
If you have some around the house, it doesn't matter what strength, there's drugstore rubbing alcohol for first aid use. And if you have an eyedropper, great, but most people don't have eyedroppers lying around. So like a Q-tip, we're gonna drop little bits of alcohol into paint and make texture. So those three things.
Mhm.
And then I wanted to show you all another quick thing. I don't know. Let's see. I'm going to screen share something. Okay, I'm just going to spend a minute showing this. I have shown my students this before, but I love Instagram. Can y'all see that little color card?
Oh, yeah.
Pretty.
Okay, this is somebody I follow on Instagram. And if you don't have Instagram, you can go to her website. It's so beautiful. It's Lorene. Let's see.
Gardner Cook.
Let me put it in the chat box. A handmade garden. A handmade garden.
That's beautiful.
Isn't it beautiful? Whoops, I'm gonna lose it for a minute.
That's pretty. What's her name?
ahandmadegarden.com. Lorene Edwards Faulkner.
Her name one more time, please.
Lorene Edwards Faulkner. See that little box that popped up with 3 photos? I don't know if that's,
Yeah.
you see Gardner Cook. Her name is
Okay, okay.
see
Thank you
that?
for that.
Lorene Edwards Faulkner. ahandmadegarden.com. Yeah, see, it's just every day she goes into her garden and picks something from nature and replicates the colors.
I would love to be able to do something like that.
You
Her,
can.
her stuff pops. I mean, it just pops. That's just really special.
You all can do this. Maybe not one every day, but I would love to do it too. I thought if I could just do one a week. And you know, some weeks she does like 4, 4x4 swatches, and some it's just 3x3s. And it's just lovely.
Oh, she's got rocks down there too.
Yeah, she does rocks and
Wow.
shells.
Oh, there she is.
So you could do this, just get a bunch of watercolor paper and cut it into little squares so they're ready to go. And then when you feel inspired, make a little card. In the little, look at her plum.
Oh, look at that. Look at
A
the
little
peach,
strip of
too.
brown in the top left to symbolize the stem.
That is so pretty.
Yeah, so beautiful. And the blues, the hydrangea. Okay.
Look at that leaf.
Does she ever use elements from the plants or flowers or fruits?
I haven't seen her do that yet. And there is an artist who goes by the Art of Soil.
Oh,
Makes soil-based paints, little watercolor sets.
oh,
The Art of Soil. And she grinds up dirts and things and makes these beautiful earthy pigments.
oh.
You're so pretty.
I know, it's just gorgeous. So you all have the tools to do this. It's just a matter of practicing. You can make all these, adding more paints to your palette is possible. You could buy some more tube colors, but you can mix a lot of shades.
Yeah,
with what you
look at
have.
these.
That is so beautiful.
It is.
Go to today's lesson and go ahead and, well, thank you all for indulging me because I think it's beautiful too.
Thank you for indulging us.
Yeah.
One of the things that I love about this class is I am an orphan. I live alone and I am alone in this world. And so when I zoom in, I probably overshare and overtalk because literally you're the only people I talk to. So it's okay if you say, Patty, you're talking too much. Because I forget myself.
Well, we need connection, maybe you could find another Zoom group to connect with, or just keep taking my classes.
I'm going to keep taking your classes, and I think I'm going to sign up for Lorene's classes too, because I love that.
A lot of artists are very introverted, and but we still need connection. So
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And my cats are sick of me, so.
Okay, so today we have a full hour, which is great. We're gonna focus on blues, and we're going to practice mixing blues, and then we're gonna also while we're practicing our blues, I'm going to go over a couple of other techniques for painting, ways to apply paint to the paper. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about different properties of paint that granulate. Talked a little bit about that last week. And then we'll do some things that are helpful for blue nature elements like water and sky. And if you think of Lorraine's beautiful hydrangea flower was blue, yet it wasn't just one blue. It was a dynamic array of blues, bluish purples even. So using our simple primary color palette, we'll play with blues. And you can just get out a big piece of paper. We're going to make little swatches. And we're going to need a couple pieces of paper because we're going to play with color swatches. And then we're going to do a little bit of skies. And maybe since we know greens, these are very simplified, but we learned greens last week. We're going to learn blues today. We can do some landscapes, some simple landscapes. And then next week, when we learn our neutrals, we'll have even more options for landscapes. So I'll come back, I'll revisit this next week and maybe touch on it today. Okay, so in my set of paints, the one we're using, little Daniel Smith box, which is my favorite. They are made in Seattle and they are just brilliant. The Essentials box has the phthalo blue and the ultramarine blue. Phthalo and ultramarine. And when you, let's see, we'll grab one more thing. And this is something I go over in some of my other classes more thoroughly, but these are the 6 colors in the Daniel Smith kit. And this is the primary color that I like, the primary set of yellow, red, and blue that I like to call the intense triad, because when you mix them, you get really intense, juicy, bright colors, and they're beautiful. But the classic triad is more traditional and more toned down. And it creates more earthy greens and blues. This green we learned last week is kind of bright, kind of like Kermit the Frog green. It's fun, but not, it is seen in nature, but more seen in nature are greens created with ultramarine blue.
Can I go get my phone and take a picture of that, please?
I can send it to you all.
Thank you.
Or you can, I mean, do you know how to do a screenshot? You can do Control-Shift-3. I'm sorry, I'll send you a photo of it.
Thank
Don't
you.
worry about it right now. I'll photo it and send it to you with the recording.
I'll study that.
Yeah, it's helpful. It's these 6 colors broken up and made into a color.
That's
scheme.
really awesome. Yeah, I'll study that.
I do in my very beginner watercolor class. So, okay, so today we're gonna play with both of the blues we have. I'm gonna show you some other blues I happen to have in my paints that you all might have or want to buy. But we're just gonna play. We're gonna play with blue. So not really color mixing today because blue is a primary color that just exists. We don't have to mix 2 colors to make it. It just exists, primary. And let's just practice playing with the 2 that we have. We're not going to think about nature subjects yet. We're just going to warm up and trying to think here what we want to do. Let's make a puddle of phthalo blue. So get your brush really wet.
That's a gorgeous blue.
It is gorgeous, phthalo. It's short for halo cyanine. It will stain your paper, your clothes. Yeah, so. And as you build on your palette, you can do some pretty amazing things with phthalo blue as far as mixing it with other colors.
I see a range of possibilities with my boxes.
Oh yeah, just these 6 colors. I have students that have been using just these 6 colors for nearly a year now, and they're creating fabulous photos, fabulous paintings.
So my friends might not be getting any presents from me.
Make them something.
I'll make them something. I'll make
Yes.
them take your class.
Take a class with you, yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
I got my phthalo blue, and then ultramarine. Yeah, there's so much to learn and explore with watercolor. It really is marvelous and endless. And I'm trying not to give too much information, yet I want to inspire you and give you enough to work on independently.
Elizabeth, did you go to school for this? Are you
You know, I didn't go to art school.
Okay.
I went to college, I got a master's degree, I did the corporate job thing. And then when I had my kids and was home with them, I always loved art. I studied art history in undergrad. And
You're very good at what you do.
well, I thank you. In 2010, I started taking classes from Multnomah Arts Center here in Portland, and I found an instructor I loved, and I just took classes from her for years. And then I found another instructor I loved. And I just love to learn, and I just studied and practiced, and it
Me
became my
too.
obsession.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are our 2 blues. So let's do this. I'm going to use ultramarine first. And I'm just going to make a patch of ultramarine. And remember, we talked about how you roll your brush in the puddle of color so that it's nice and juicy and fluid. And then you take it to your paper and you just stroke on your color. Ultramarine.
My brushes came in. Oh, what a difference.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Poor brushes are so frustrating.
Oh, what a difference.
You are all set, Patty. I'm happy for you.
Thank you. I am delighted. I am absolutely delighted, thrilled.
My day is complete.
Pretty much. It doesn't take much.
And then we can do many shades of this ultramarine. I'm going to do another swatch, just the same probably. So we can create ultramarine. Blues are so dark and they have a lot of range in value. So if we add a bunch of water like to one corner of our puddle and really dilute the color, I'm just adding water and just really diluting a bit of my paint to paint with it. See how pale I can make it. Same color, just more water.
Wow.
I'll do that again. And this is value. Value is the range of lights and darks within one color. And you could challenge yourself to create like 8 different values of this one color. Even more water to make it even paler. I'm going to use mostly water. It's still, yeah, This one's very light. You can also use, like, go into your phthalo with very little water. Actually, I'm sorry, we're using ultramarine. Go into your ultramarine with very little water. Look at that. That's full strength. See that? Woo-wee. Fun. So maybe when you're doing like a watery scene where you've got your watercolor in a light blue, and then you want to add darker blue marks for waves or river rapids or something, just one color can be used. So that's value, more water, less water, ultramarine. Now let's do it with phthalo blue. Got the puddle here. And sweeping across. There. I could make color swatches all day. I should just do what Lorraine does. The little color cards are so beautiful. So that's like a medium value. Then I can go, kind of dip into the paint, not dilute it much. The problem with that is you need it watery enough to be flowy. Otherwise, you're going to get dark marks in it from your brush strokes there.
Can I admit something?
Yes.
I really put some cash into my products. I probably spent, I got several packs of brushes, and I just decided to throw myself into this because the winter's coming in and I wanted to have something to look forward to. And this just brightens my soul. I just love this.
That's how I feel, Patty. It transformed my life. And your paints, the paints last a while. So you feel like you're making a big initial investment, but your paints will last for a while. And your brushes, I've had brushes for a decade.
That's awesome.
They're not going to fall apart if you rinse them well. Just rinse them really well, and then maybe grab them with a rag to dry them off.
Okay.
And then leave them flat on a non-porous, don't leave them flat on a rag, but leave them flat on a table or something where damp cloth isn't going to be touching this part.
Okay. Okay.
But leave them flat while they dry. You can even put it like across your palette like that.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
And they'll be fine. Okay,
Perfect.
so we're going to do phthalo, dark. I'm going to go, I'm going to try to make a darker one. There we go. Lots of water and lots of paint. Okay, then I'll rinse it. I'm going to make a couple lighter ones. Let's dilute this over here.
I think color is the sound of my silence.
That would be a beautiful painting title. Paint what that feels like. Don't draw, just paint it. Think about that mantra and paint while you're thinking of that. Okay, and then more water. Sometimes I even use like my rinse water here is kind of blue. Sometimes I'll paint with that. See, it's tinted very light blue. So here we go, 2 blues, lots of possibilities. And if we have time, maybe I'll show you some other blues, yet more blues that I have. At least tell you the names of them and what they look like. But you don't need to go out and buy more blues. I'm just introducing this as kind of a teaser of what could be ahead for you. If you really like painting water and skies, then sure, maybe it would make sense to add some more blues to your palette. All righty. Another thing, okay, so we've talked about value, which is lights and darks. And I want to point out granulation. Granulation exists in some pigments. Ultramarine is one of them, where the pigment will separate and granulate as it dries and settles into the paper. And you can kind of see that happening. There's a little texture to your ultramarine. Granulating pigments. Granulating pigments are usually more opaque. If you look at ultramarine and phthalo, maybe in your palette, you can see there's kind of an opaqueness or opacity to the ultramarine. It's less clear, whereas the phthalo is clearer, cleaner. And again, that's why the phthalo blue comes out being more, I guess, smoother than the ultramarine, which granulates and has a texture to it. Okay, so granulation, and we'll next week when we do our neutrals, we're going to mix ultramarine, we're going to mix our colors again to create neutrals, and we'll see that granulation take effect. All right, another way, so we talked about value, another way you can create value, if you don't get a deep enough color the first time around, you can do what's called glaze. Glaze, which is add another layer to your paint, your painted swatch. You need to make sure the layer is dry first. So let's do glazing. Let's do glazing after these dry a little bit. Let's just wait on glazing. I'm thinking, let's practice making a few swatches here. Let's do 3 larger swatches. Just you can pencil them in.
Hi, son. Hi, sweetheart. And let's Hey, honey. Hi.
let's paint with both. colors in the same square. And don't worry about what it's going to be. Don't think about sky or water. Just paint both colors together. Just let them weave together. And meet on the page. And then let it dry and settle and do its own thing. And you can also add, trying to stick to blues here, but sometimes blues, like I'm thinking of that hydrangea color card that Lorraine did, the Instagram artist. This is a little bit of rose. I'm just gonna put a little bit of rose over here. I want to paint a blue patch again, but I want to incorporate a little bit of rose into it. So I'm going to take that little rose puddle and I'm just going to scoop up some blue. Make it more of a purple. Violet. Violet is gorgeous.
Are we doing that too, Elizabeth?
Yeah, go ahead and
Okay.
make a pretty little violet color.
Okay.
Use just the rose. Don't worry about the pyro red. Because, yeah, we're gonna, I think I'm gonna give you all purples as part of your homework because blue is our topic for today and I don't have a separate week for violets. I'm gonna let y'all do violets on your own. So this is one violet. And I'm doing that because I'm thinking of like, I was imagining a sky here. And there is a little bit of violet in the sky. So this little patch here, I'm just going to practice my blue and my violet. So you just always want to have puddles of color ready. And then you can kind of play with letting them mix and mingle on the paper. That's a very purpley blue. Let's get out another piece of paper and I'm going to give you something. We're going to start something that you can finish on your own. You can probably guess what it's going to be. Violets. We'll come back to this in a minute. We're going to let it dry and set it aside. And then I'll show you some techniques, but let's do another color assignment for the week ahead. If you choose, some of you have already done this a million times and might not want to do it, but we're going to do violets and we're going to do ultramarine, plus Pyrrole is the Daniel Smith red. That's Pyrrole red, okay? And then we're gonna do ultramarine plus phthalo. One row for ultramarine and pyrrole, one row for ultramarine and phthalo. And then we'll do I'm sorry, quinacridone red. That's quinacridone rose. I made a mistake. I apologize. I'm doing blue and red. Ultramarine blue and pyrrole red. Ultramarine blue and quinacridone rose. So we're mixing our ultramarine with both of the reds. And then we'll mix our phthalo blue PH, our phthalo blue with both of our reds. So phthalo blue plus pyrrole red. I cannot talk and write at the same time. That's the problem. Pyrrole red. And phthalo blue plus quin rose. Okay, so start this with me and then you can finish it for homework. Our study of violets, blue and red. So ultramarine, we've got that mixed. Pyrrole red. Pyrrole red is, I'm gonna make a puddle of it. It's almost orange and it's opaque. It's somewhat opaque. If you look at it, it's very flat and kind of has a opacity to it. And it looks like it looks orange. I'm gonna make a big puddle of pyrrole red. And then because we're gonna mix it with blue, the blue is so strong, we're just gonna pick up a little bit of ultramarine and pyrrole red, a little bit of ultramarine over here, and kind of merge it into the pyrrole red. See, it is making a purpley violet, but it's kind of raisiny. It's a weird mauvey color, right? Pyrrole red, it's because pyrrole red has such an orange tone to it. Whoops, that's my favorite blue, sorry. So play with ultramarine and pyrrole red for homework. Ultramarine, mix more of it in. And less of it. Alter the amount of pyrrole red and ultramarine to see what you get. Then the next purple will be ultramarine. Again, ultramarine, sorry, ultramarine is down here. Ultramarine and the quin rose. There's the quin rose. What happens when you mix those? Ultramarine and quin rose. Create a whole row of just ultramarine and quin rose. Adding more and less red, more or less quin rose, to learn what happens as you shift it to the blue end of the spectrum. You could do a whole page of just these two colors, but one row will get you started. Okay, and then we're gonna mix blue and red using our phthalo blue. So phthalo blue and pyrrole. This is kind of getting us in the neutral zone. Look at that, it's gray, it's not even violet. And again, that's because our pyrrole red is so orangey. But you can still play with that combination, phthalo blue and pyrrole red, and we're learning our colors, right? And then this final row will be the phthalo blue and quin rose. Here's our quin rose. Quinacridone rose. Phthalo blue, which we were doing earlier, okay? That's a true violet and it's beautiful. Now, this is what you can play with. You can create violets this week. Learn how these two blues and these two reds create different violet hues. And notice these ultramarine swatches, they're gonna dry and they're gonna granulate. It's happening. This ultramarine and pyrrole red is granulating because of the ultramarine blue, and you can see it on your own swatch probably. You can see two colors kind of shimmering in there. So that will be what you can work on this week. Extend those out. Any questions on that? We'll go back to our techniques. Back to just our ultramarine and phthalo blue for now. And since we have these paints already on our plate, we can do, let me get a lot of water on my brush. And let me do, this pyrrole red is so crazy when they mix it with blues. But sometimes skies and water, like now there's just no rhyme or reason to what I'm mixing, but orange, pyrrole red and my blues, I'm gonna paint with them in this square. And the pyrrole red is toning down or neutralizing the blue. Pyrrole red is great at neutralizing. Look at all these crazy, crazy blue, gray, stormy coastal colors. What else can you think of that this would be good for nature subjects in?
Rock formations.
Yep, absolutely. Rocks, rocks, rocks.
Shadows behind trees.
Shadows, it's excellent for shadows. So again, in more advanced watercolor or more involved watercolor classes, I talk a lot about neutrals, which we're going to learn next week. Next week you're going to love, but neutrals, they're great for shadows, darks, rocks, weathered fences, boards, the sky even. This will fade as it dries. It could be like a stormy sky, or, you know, just endless possibilities. Okay, so now let me get back to some techniques. All right, so these three swatches are, a couple colors are used and paper was dry. paper was dry. So there was more control, even though it is kind of free and flowy, there is some control over where the paint goes. And because my paint was so fluid, there aren't a lot of brush strokes. The puddles just kind of blended together on the page.
Thank you.
For landscapes, I'm gonna bring this back that I did previously and it has now dried. Sometimes you want very, very light colors.
Yes, you. Okay, you need to come see me. Next week sometime.
And you get that by using more water. And instead of really, really diluting your color over here, like we did for this, you can wet your paper. So I'm going to show you our next thing first. It's called wet into wet. And if your water is really murky, we're using blues, so it's okay if my water is not crystal clear, but ideally you want pretty clean water. Even though my water looks blue in the tub, it's going on pretty clear. So I'm painting a wet patch. And I'm gonna go like halfway across the paper. A wet patch, and you want it wet enough so that your paper's shiny, but not dripping wet. So kind of tilt it and see, you know, it's shiny. And then you're gonna drop in, let's just do ultramarine. Drop in ultramarine. And paper's wet, so it's pulling the color along. There. And then let it settle into the wet patch and let it dry. But you will all go ahead and do that. And I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to get a Kleenex handy, or you can use paper towel or the corner of a dry rag. We're going to dab some clouds. So let me start out by wetting the paper. Wet into wet. My paint is wet and the paper is wet. Okay, there's my wet patch. You can watch this first and do it later if you want, but there's my wet patch. And then dropping in, again, I'm just using ultramarine, got a little heavier, got more of it on my brush this time, so it is a little darker. Just painting the whole space. Try not to fiddle with it too much so it's smooth, and I'm gonna let it sit and soak into the paper for a little bit. And gosh, I kind of, where my brush was stalling a little bit, I do have some white marks already, but I'm gonna lift out more with my Kleenex. But first, I wanna let it soak in a little bit. Okay, so I've just kind of loosely rolled this up and tapping it into the paint to lift out a cloud. Funny. There's a cloudy sky. In my imagination, I see clouds. How are y'all doing? So I'm teaching very fundamental building blocks for you all. And I want you to feel unrestricted in our time between classes to experiment anything that pops into your head. If you find yourself wondering, what will happen if I do this or that? Do it, try it. And you can use the back of papers you've already painted on, like your green papers. Your green practice sheets, you can flip over to the back of your watercolor pages and paint on the back of them. Okay, so the last row down here, we'll do two more. We'll do two more swatches this size, and let's do wet into wet. And we're going to use both blues. One of my teachers was raised in Texas, and she taught us how to make a kick-ass sky. I remember her calling it a kick-ass sky. I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. But it was simply using both phthalo blue and ultramarine in the wet into wet technique. So we wet our paper. And then we have our puddles of color ready, and we're just gonna drop in some ultramarine. And then this is that changing color every time we grab more. And
Would
this
you ever use a larger brush when you're painting a sky because maybe it takes up a lot of room on the page?
yeah, for a bigger area, you want a bigger brush.
Okay.
So I didn't put a little phthalo goes a long way. I didn't get more phthalo. I'm just using what's already here and kind of integrating it in. But yeah, your brush size is determined by the size of the shape you're painting. So a larger shape will need a larger brush. And I have really large brushes. If I paint on a big piece of paper that's like the size of this desktop, my brush is like a size 36. You know, it's really big and fat. And also a lot of landscape painters use wide brushes. You know, they look like the brushes you paint your walls with. They're wide and flat. There's so much you could talk about with landscape paintings, skies and water. Um, Obviously, we're not going to learn all that today, but you could take classes for years just on painting landscapes. And you could go to YouTube and Google watercolor landscape demos and just watch what some people are doing. It's pretty fun. Some people have really wide, big brushes and a little bit of color, and they just go shoosh, shoosh, shoosh. And they have like this, it looks like an amazing landscape, and you like can feel the weather and see the weather. It's so expressive and amazing. Okay, so there's one sky using the two blues. I'm just going to do it again. So these again are basic building blocks. You can practice this week, explore, write down your questions, and bring them to class next week, and I'll address them. So again, just a little phthalo and a little more ultramarine. Gosh, sometimes, I could just throw a dot of purple in there. Maybe this would be more of a water scene, I don't know. Don't fiddle with it too much though. See, when you do that, you'll regret it. I disrupted the natural process of the paint mixing on the paper. I messed it up. I knew when I did it, I shouldn't be doing that. Maybe I can fix it. I'll just go over it like this and it'll look like I meant to do it. Oh well. I'm gonna wipe the whole thing, blot the whole thing up. It's very, very, very pale. But it's pretty. I like it better now. Any questions? So one of the things I can show you, so I blotted out the clouds with the Kleenex. You can practice blotting with paper towel, Kleenex, rag. Each one will give you a different effect. Even like a sponge. Let's see if I've got. There's sponges that are, like the more organic looking ones. I don't want to waste time trying to find mine, but they're just like sea sponges. You can dab with those too. So let me go back up here and show you glazing. Glazing is, I'm gonna turn my paper around because that's wet. So glazing is just layering color applications to deepen the value, to make it darker. So say something dries and you want it to be darker, you can go over it with another layer of paint to build up the value. And again, glazing is very, very common in watercolor painting because most watercolors are transparent, meaning you're always going to see kind of a glowiness to them. The white of the paper is always shining through. So you can build up transparent layers, and as you do so, you can transform the color. For simple purposes right now, I'm going to glaze with the same color. So ultramarine, I'm going to glaze it with another layer of ultramarine. Go over this and glaze one more layer. There. Make it a little darker. And I can make this one a little darker. And I can add maybe not as much blue. Maybe I can water my blue down a little bit. And put a fine layer, kind of the same value over it again. And I just deepened it a little more. So a softer touch, a more diluted layer. Again, one color glazing over in various values to change the value of your initial swatch. Glazing. Glazing can be done with the same color. Kind of cement that in your mind. You can also glaze with a different color, but you need to know what your colors do. And this is a whole realm of practice because your colors need to play well together or you're going to get something kind of unexpected. So going back to the greens, for instance, this is a more advanced thing. I don't want to cause too much. You can do it with the blues. You can glaze different blues on top of one another. You can glaze any colors you want, but what am I trying to say here? Glazing with the same color or a different color will change the color and the value. So for instance, if you've got a green that's really not what you want, you can glaze over it. And again, this is a whole, like this one color green or these two greens, I could play with this all day. You can take a very light wash of ultramarine over it. I could go over all these with a very light wash of ultramarine, a different color. I'm kind of sad to do this because I like what I did, but I want to show you all how you can change a color. You can't completely obliterate it, but you can tone it down or change it a little bit by glazing. So I'm toning. Toning means to darken, to soften, to neutralize a color. Toning with a dark color. I could tone all these colors. I could also tint them. Tint means lighten. Yellow is a light color. You can take yellow. My brush and my rinse water are bluish. They're kind of changing my yellow up. But I mean, I can tint a darker color. Here's a green. I can tint it with yellow just by glazing the yellow over the green. Tinting it. Look how bright that got. Now I have my Kermit the Frog green again. There. So glazing. glazing with the same color to build up the value. Okay, any questions? We're at the end of class. I didn't show you all the other blues I have. If you want to hang out for 5 more minutes, I can do that. If you have to go, I understand. But I want to ask, does anyone have questions? No questions? Who needs to go? All right, you all, if you have a question, unmute yourself. I'm going to show you, if you want to add more blues, I don't use, you don't need to add any more blues, but some of you might already have blues. But since I have these, I'm just going to show you common blues that you can also add to your collection. This is cobalt blue. I'm just going to show you in case you get online. It's fun to add paints to your palette, and this maybe will demystify some of it. The cobalt is similar to ultramarine. It doesn't granulate, it's flat. See that when I say flat? It's kind of chalky and it's opaque. And it's a nice addition if you're going to do a lot of skies and water. The cobalt, real pretty. And these are all quite similar. You can learn a lot about all the minutiae, all these colors by reading books. And this is a pretty wild cobalt teal. Again, it's opaque. Cobalts are not transparent. I mean, they're not 100% opaque, but they definitely have, see that? They have a chalkiness to them.
Mhm.
When you paint with it, it's somewhat transparent. I mean, it does have transparency, but it also has that granulation. And the straight up cobalt is the same way. If blues are your thing, you can, again, Google more information about popular blues for watercolor painters or best blues for landscape painting. This one is manganese blue. This one is a cool color.
I like that one.
I do too. I like this a lot. I use it. I did a lot of paintings of flowers, and I use this manganese blue as the background. It's pretty.
Oh, very nice.
That's a good sky one too.
Yep, I can see that.
Throw it in with, you know, some of the other.
I can see where I'm going to use my palettes to divide my
There's
color.
extra little holes. That can be your winter project. Each month you can add a new color or two. The
And I
thing
have
is, each time you add a color to your collection, you get to explore and discover how it interacts with all the other colors you have. Isn't that fun?
Do you
Just
have a,
one color opens up like a whole new realm. And then cerulean. Cerulean is another common blue.
very
Again,
pretty?
yeah.
Do you have a palette for blues, a palette for reds, a palette for greens? Do you do
So
that?
I'll show you, it's 19 after. I'm gonna show you my palette and then we can sign off. I'll go and grab it over here. It's across the room. Okay, this took me years to build up to. And I did not get this many paints until after I've been painting probably 5 or 6, 7 years, maybe. It was a progression to this. And this is what I painted with for probably 6 years now. And this is plenty of colors for me. And I based this off of a suggested palette that Ruth Armitage used in her classes at Oregon Society of Artists. Ruth is an amazing painter, but and I do want to switch this out, like this color, this Naples yellow, and I'm not finding that so useful anymore. But you know, I've got a couple yellows. I've got a lot. I love painting with warm colors. So just this yellow and this gold with these reds gives me a huge range of warms.
That's
And then for
beautiful.
fun, I added some lavender and orchid. And then I guess the point I should make is I still mainly mix my colors using the primaries.
Really? Wow.
Yep. So I do have a green. I really like this green gold. But I still, when I paint with greens, I mix my greens. I'll use a little bit of phthalo sometimes, but I use my yellows, my reds, and my blues. You can see, look at how empty the
Yep.
blues are because I mix them with yellow, which is also nearly empty, to create my greens. And this is quinacridone rose, our Daniel Smith quinacridone rose, and I use it a ton. I mix it with the yellows to create oranges. I mix it with all these blues to create purples. These are just kind of like boutique colors. These other ones, browns, we can mix amazing browns. We're going to do neutrals next week, but I do have some standbys in my palette to tone down a color quickly. Like if I'm painting with something and it's too loud, I'll grab a little bit of one of these to tone it down. But again, I built up to this over many years. So no, I don't keep separate palettes for each color.
Okay. So once again, tone darkens and tint lightens. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I have the vernacular down. Okay. I
Yeah.
wrote that. Wanted to make sure.
I
wanted to make- Okay.
And
I
then
wanted to make
the other palette, so here's another palette like we've been using in class. This was kind of an intermediate one for me where I did fill it all. But what happened was I started painting larger and I needed bigger brushes, bigger mixing areas. So I jumped into the full
Right.
blown. Any
Sweet.
other questions before we sign off?
Thank you very much.
You have enough to keep you busy this week?
Oh, no. Yes.
Okay,
This is
work on your
wonderful.
palettes. Create some play with skies. And glazing.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful weekend after the rain. We'll dry out next week and I'll see you Thursday.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
You're welcome, Donna. See you soon.
Okay.